of the 21st. Because there's no other meetings on those particular days.
How do y'all feel about that?
I'm looking.
I'm good with either one.
Mr. Sherman's good.
That should be all right.
Scott said he was good.
While they're looking at
I just
calendars,
made that
just to make the record with it, Rhonda, so it looks like the rollback rate that you're working with is 5.01, 5.0712.
That is
the rollback
correct.
rate?
Yes.
Because that'll go on the DR 422, right? That's reported also in the DR 420.
Yes. Neither of those dates work for me.
You want to switch up by day of the week? If it's going to be a special meeting?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Switch up the day of the week instead
go
of
to
just being a
Wednesday?
Thursday, since it's going to be a special meeting?
Would the 13th and 20th work? That would be a Wednesday.
Can they only be a week apart, or do they have to be 2 weeks apart?
Oh, you're right. I'm so sorry. Yeah, they've got to be 2 weeks apart because I've got to advertise
Yeah.
that final meeting.
So 13 and 27?
That could work if it's okay.
Can they be in October?
No.
No.
The budget starts October 1.
Yeah.
What about moving them earlier into September?
Like 1 and 15?
Yeah, something like that.
Well, we keep the one that we can and get that Friday or the following Monday.
Can you
They can
do
get the room.
September 1, or in September 14, or maybe the,
Could you not do August 31st and September 14th, and that's 2 weeks apart? Do they have to be 2 weeks apart or 1 week apart?
2 weeks apart because I have to put an ad in the paper for the final.
Display ad.
Yes.
Can we not do the
so
August 31st and the 14th? That's 2 weeks?
August 31st won't work for me.
Okay.
You kind of need to be there.
No, she needs the time
All right.
to put it together.
Well, you can have them further than 2 weeks apart though, right?
Yes.
So you could still keep the 14th and just go to a date in August that works for Rhonda. Well, we would even go in August for the first one. Because the 14th works for everybody, so we got that. So all we need to do is just go in August.
So what Eric is saying is keep the 14th as the
final.
final hearing date, correct?
And then August 30th?
You can't do any time after the 28th either? Eric?
Well, you only have the 29th before
Yeah.
we go in the next fiscal year.
Rhonda, are you good with August 30th?
31st.
She can't do 31st.
She can't do the 31st.
Well, I tell you what, I'll make it work.
You'll
So you
make-
want to do the 30th or the 31st?
Do we have a preference?
No, both of them are good.
And are those clear from other jurisdictions? Do we know, is that what you're checking over there? Are you checking you have
Well,
the other
that's what I'm
jurisdictions'
trying to,
calendars?
well, the only I'll have, because I didn't even think to even go back and look at August, because I just was under the assumption that we would be good in September.
We'll probably be ahead of the others. They probably will all be in
Yes.
September, so you're probably safe, but I just didn't know if that's what you had in front of you there.
Well, the only conflict could be with the school boards, because the dates in September are their second readings. Let's see if you can.
Well, while they're doing that, let's discuss mill rate. Do we have any discussion on mill rate?
I thought that would be the harder part.
Right. Let's get that out of the way. That'll give them time. Any discussion on mill rate? Comments?
Well,
No? Yes or no?
it's a tentative millage rate, so no, not at this point.
You can always go down, it's very hard to go up from tentative.
Well, that was a short discussion. I thought that was going to be a good stall tactic.
You want to open it up for the public?
Well, then we would have to probably do the
So it's gotta be on.
meetings as part of it.
Either regular.
Yeah, it has to be part of the, well, it's part of the 420, so they need to notify the tax
Yep.
collector.
Yeah, okay.
30th and the 31st, and we make sure it's not on either one of those.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. The mayor came up with a great suggestion, is that we reserve the 30th and 31st, and then if there's any conflicts, then we'll get back to you.
All
Will
right.
that work?
So we're doing holding August
August
30th and 31st, and then September 14th.
Yes.
Why would we need to hold two dates?
Just in
one
case the
conflict.
school
Make
board.
sure there's no conflict with other.
With the school boards.
Because they won't have an opportunity, before they have to submit that form to the tax collector, they won't have another opportunity to come back to you, because that form has to be, I think, August 4th is the due date, right? Yeah.
Got it. Discussion on the dates. All right, we'll open this up to public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? All right, seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Further discussion? All right, no discussion, I'll look for motion.
Motion to approve the tentative general fund millage rate for the fiscal year 23-24 at 5.450.
I'll second the motion.
A motion and a second. Drew, does this need to be a roll
Go
call?
ahead and do a voice vote. Or, I'm sorry, a roll call vote, excuse me.
All right, Penny, if you call the roll.
Sure. Commissioner Sherman?
Yes.
Commissioner Belhumeur?
Yes.
Commissioner Mealy?
Yes.
Chair Cooley?
Yes, the motion. Motion passes unanimous. All right. So now we're going to go back to item 8, which is provide direction to staff regarding quotes for shed relocation costs. And Drew, are you taking this one? Or city manager?
Looks like Penny.
I will introduce it, but I don't know much more than what's in your packet. You think of the last time it was here, you'd wanted more quotes, and now you have, I think, quotes.
That was your direction to the applicant, was to bring back a minimum of 2 quotes. They provided those to my office, and they're in your packet.
I need one
For your
of those forms
consideration.
again.
Voting conflict form?
Yeah.
All right, so questions or comments about this item? And we're going to need a direction to go and build a consensus. Commissioner Sherman.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and my thoughts are, after discussing this matter with the city manager, I would be okay with, we kind of talked about this on end. I don't know what the appetite for the rest of everybody up here would be, but I would be okay with helping with the relocation of the shed. I think that's what we all kind of agreed on initially when we I don't know, there was a little bit of back and forth, but to my recollection, I thought that would be fair to relocate, cover the cost at $300 for the relocation of the shed based on everything that's transpired.
Okay, so you're saying help with the relocation of the shed, and if I'm looking at this right, the cost of that is $300?
33.
$3,300.
Oh, 30, well, that's, no, down here it says, quote to relocate building, $300 shed movers of Florida.
That's what I saw.
As best I remember,
Put it right closer.
I thought we kind of
Just to relocate the
figured that we shared some responsibility on this, and I'd be willing to split the cost of moving the shed to a different spot. I see that he's apparently found another location where he doesn't have to do as much with his driveway. So half of his lowest estimate, which would be half of 3,300.
Okay, so you're saying not half of just relocating the shed, you're saying half of the total expense to do the move, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Commissioner,
Yeah, I
And
do.
before you speak, if you would, just state for the record you're voting conflict again. I know you're filling out the form
Okay,
now.
I live across the street from the Ronins, and it's my property value.
Could impact your property values.
Right. We said we would help with the relocation, and the way the quotes are written, it's $300 for the relocation, not $3,300. So we didn't say we'd pay for landscaping and all the rest of that. So I think sharing in the 300 is what we had agreed to.
sharing in the, can you say that again?
Sharing in the 300 cost for the relocation.
Mayor, do you have any thoughts?
My thought was, and it's more of it's a question, but I don't know if we're to that point yet. If Crushcrete was already brought in on the original, and if it could be reused, because that's $2,000, and what would happen to the original Crushcrete that was brought in when they first put the shed in?
Okay, so we have a lot of different ideas here. Let's hear from the applicants. If y'all can come up and please state your name and address for the record and give us your thoughts, and then that way we can have some further discussion.
Sure. Jeff Roman, 212 Lambert. My impression was the city was going to cover all of this. You had a city planner that more than one time has openly admitted that the city erred in giving me a permit. It's in transcript. The city erred in giving me a permit. They did. And then I went and bought all this stuff and put all that stuff in. What I felt like I heard the last time we were here was get an entire quote, not just a quote to move the building, an entire quote, get two of them. We did. I found a more efficient way of doing it by just raising the driveway to the level of the shed, so I don't have to have an 8-foot ramp. The 8-foot ramp is what was going to cause me to relocate the driveway. Did that, brought these things here to you folks here today. So I'm confused. You know, before we filed the variance, which cost me $1,000, and I got a lawyer that cost me $2,000, we met with a city planner in his office who also told us, shouldn't have given you a permit. And if you don't get a variance, we'll pay to move your shed. In that meeting, probably a year ago. So I'm just so, this has been going on for a year and a half. And I'm just so incredibly disappointed in what has happened here, how I feel like I'm being treated by the city for this past year and a half, culminating in like what's happening right now, which is kind of another reversal of what I felt like I heard you guys saying just a couple of months ago. So that's my position on it.
Okay, and Mayor had a question about the existing, I guess, fill rock that is there. About, is it possible to reuse that, or can only new stuff get brought in? You gotta, if you can just.
Yeah, I guess part of it's in the quote, but to use that, now you have to move the shed twice. You have to come move the shed,
Then get access to it.
get all that stuff and move it, and then come back and move the shed again. I don't know how usable it is. I'm not a landscaper, so I don't know.
Okay, Commissioners or Mayor, do we have any other questions for Mr. Rono while he's up here?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Right. My thoughts are a little bit more in line with probably Rick's. You can't move the shed without having the area where it sits prepped. And my understanding of the last discussion we had is we were kind of talking about, we were in this together and in splitting that cost. So I'm okay with half of the quote, because this involves this is ground prep, to make that happen. And half of that is not a huge amount of money. Is there any other thoughts?
I'd be amicable to that, Mr. Chairman, to half of the 3,300.
Mayor, Rick, Commissioner Mealy? Commissioner Mealy doesn't like that idea, Rick?
Well, that's,
Well, I'm not voting, so,
You still
I-
matter, though.
thank you.
that's how I remember the discussion going last time, so,
It was
Okay.
brought up as a cost share.
right. Because I feel we do have responsibility to some degree.
Okay, so it sounds like we're kind of all on the same page.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
Someone help me understand how this is 50% my fault. Like, the city gave me a permit. You gave me a permit on the documentation that I brought down there. Your city planner said, man, we never should have given you this permit, but you gave me one. And then I went and paid all that money to do what I did after you gave me a permit that you said you shouldn't have given me. And now you're saying, 50-50. I don't see it that way. I don't see it 50-50. I just don't. It doesn't make sense to me. So like, somebody help me understand why it's that way now.
Okay, thank you. You can have a seat. Drew, well, we can't, Drew won't be able to explain why we are feeling like it's 50-50, but he can explain the permitting and all that.
Well, nobody's going to like the answer I have, but if we were in a court of law, the court would say 0. Because the court says that it's the homeowner's responsibility to know what the code says, even when they're told something wrong. The courts have consistently said a permit issued in error is a permit issued in error, and the property owner bears the brunt of that. So from the legal perspective, what the commission is offering is more than what the law would find, put it that way. So the rest of it is up to you, but from the legal perspective, that's why I've kind of kept my mouth shut through this, because the law doesn't say you have to pay anything.
Okay, thank you. All right, further discussion.
We need a motion? Or just direction to
And I'm
staff?
going to open it up to public comment, too.
Okay. Just as direction to staff, so I didn't know.
Well, let's open up public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item?
Bob Cunningham, Flagler Beach. So I've been listening to these discussions for about the last year or so. Mr. Ronan was given a permit. I know what Drew just said about the legalities of that. My feeling is the city gave him a permit. It ought to be honored. He invested a lot of money to go ahead and put that in. He's had to go through lawyers and everything else, so I think that's created a hardship on him with all the additional financing. I think it's now going to create a hardship on the city, on the taxpayers for the additional funding to pay for moving it and reconstructing the pad. Number one, I think he ought to be given a variance for it. Where he's going to move the shed isn't going to make that much of a change from the optics of it, from the visual, from being able to see it from the road. It'll probably even be able to be more visible than where it is now. I think if you gave Mr. Ronan a variance to leave the shed where it is, to put in landscape and to hide it, it would suit everybody's purpose. It may not bring it back far enough from the property line, but that's why the variance is there, but he would be able to hide it a lot better than where it's going to be when he moves it. My opinion. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment. We did have a meeting about the variance. That meeting was held and it got heard, and which is how we ended up here. Okay, further discussion. If we don't have further discussion, we will need a motion.
I'll make a motion that we give the Ronins monetary compensation for the repositioning of the shed in the amount of $1,650.
We have motion, is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
We have motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
Commissioner Mealy did not vote in that motion. I was making sure that the record reflected it.
Okay. Thank you, Drew. All right, so we got item 9, approved purchase, removal of existing, and installation of new LED light fixtures on SR 100 bridge and bridge approaches in the amount not to exceed $36,269. And renew sole source vendor declaration. And hello, Jennifer. And there's some new information you want to cover with us?
Yes, do you have it in front of you?
We do.
I hope so. I reached
Drew-
out to
Drew
them to
gave
try
us
to
this
get some
one.
clarification on our concerns and comments. And the pricing structure.
Can you take us through the new information that you found?
He kind of just explained that it's pretty much just a pricing. They're not sure. They have to troubleshoot. And they also have to do, it's an estimate. So they're not sure how much material, how many hours it's going to take, how much cable wiring each pole is going to take to get the lights working. So it's not a final price, it's just an estimate on the amount of hours and materials
So
on the proposed.
it's a not to exceed number.
Correct.
And maybe we could get a refund on that from, like we did with the
So if it doesn't, if they don't use all the money, then that,
Because I was,
It's not necessarily a refund. We wouldn't be invoiced for it.
right, okay, but, yeah.
I believe this is a different vendor than who did the
That's definitely a
lights.
different vendor, yes. But as long as the language is there not to exceed,
it is.
my question is still, this being phase 2, is there a phase 3, and what does that encompass?
This was their idea. They weren't sure if they were going to use the whole amount. The focus was to get the bridge lights working and get that lit up, and what was left over, if there was any, where would it be going towards? And who would choose that? And I made that decision on A1A 100 to the bridge on the northeast side of 100 and A1A down to the bridge west
So you mean on the south side?
sidewalk.
Okay. I just, I know there's more, we get a certain amount of money for doing these bridge light maintenance, and still don't have any real clarification on what that all includes. Because we still have lights under the bridge, we got lights on Moody Lane, we got lights down on Palm Drive. Are they part of this maintenance agreement?
Correct, but we're focusing on the ones that are not lit up. They are not working at all. Those are the ones we're focusing on. Those all work. They're not LEDs, but they work. And these are ones that need to be rewired and need to be working.
Yeah, but the ones in the park and the one at the corner of Flagler Avenue are all working. We're just changing them from vapor to LEDs, correct?
Correct.
And then we got one on each side of the bridge that doesn't work.
The one on the west side of the bridge keeps blowing a fuse.
Okay,
And
so there's
it's
something
going to
on
need,
there.
yes.
And there's
so-
something on the east side too. There's one on the east side.
And we're focusing on the east side. There's more on the east side than the west side of 100.
Okay. Are we going to turn the, my question is, are we going to go farther with this, with changing the rest of the lights to LEDs as well? Even next
Eventually.
year, an
Yes.
additional phase? That
Yes.
There will be more phases to this?
Yes.
Okay. So,
Not a phase, we're just gonna ask for the whole amount to be approved, and hopefully they don't need all the still work, and just changing out lights and updating them.
okay.
So yes,
I'd just still like to see when this thing comes around next year for our approval, the limitations of where the lighting is, what we have to maintain. All what we saw with our agenda item recently,
wasn't in there.
just said all lighting.
It's
so-
DOT roads, which is the two on Palm.
Well, there's
And meeting.
He
one
wants to
that'll
see the
take you
scope
through.
that goes
The
with the
scope of work.
contract, the exhibit.
Right.
I meant to get that for you. I'm
Yeah, we were
sorry. I've
supposed to
been
have the
chasing
exhibit
my
for this meeting.
tail, trying to keep
Yeah.
up. So I put a note down and I will get that and I'll email it to you.
Okay.
I don't have that information.
Right, yeah, we requested that the last meeting to have the exhibit. Any other questions, Commissioner Valier? All right, Commissioner Sherman?
No.
I'm good. My comment on this agenda item is, I don't like the sole source vendor declaration. I'll tell you why. It's because we end up with potential contracts in front of us that we can't really explain well on costs. If you had, for instance, if you had multiple vendors involved in the process, we would have a much better line of sight as to, is this a good move financially? When we have one, we have no baseline. There's nothing to compare. So we're completely relying on this particular company to not leverage their position that they're the only one, the price is right, like having one vendor to do these things is how you get potentially taken advantage of with money. And I'm not saying that's happening here, but just having one, it backs us in a corner. How do you make an intelligent decision on, is this the right amount and is this fair and equitable for us as a city when we have nothing else to compare it to? That's my only comment. I don't have a problem with this contract or approving the amount. I want to get them fixed. I just have a lot of heartburn about us saying we're only going to have one person doing this. This is our person.
Understand the sole source declaration. The sole source declaration is not saying this is the only person we're interested in. I think you picked up on this specific one. What makes it unique to this, and I think you said it in your comments, is there's only one company that does the work. That's what a sole source declaration is. It's we're not doing a broader procurement because there's not anybody else. That's what the sole source declaration is. It's not saying we only want to look at one. It's saying there's only one to look at. And that's what's unique to this particular one.
But is there only one company that does this work? It's a big state.
There is more than one in the
Right.
state, but in this region, there is only this one vendor that has the FDOT certifications.
Yes.
So therefore, if we were to pull another vendor from another region of the state, their mobilization costs would likely be more than the actual price we're being quoted from this.
But it does make for potentially good comparisons, because I was worried about what you just said, which is us saying we're only going to work with this one.
That's not what you're doing.
Okay.
And your first time you saw this, we put a 6-month limitation on that, and that's why I'm asking for the sole source designation again as well.
Right, we're just there time-wise.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I have one other.
Commissioner Bellhamer?
Jennifer, could you make sure that when they do come back and do this work, that they put all those cover plates back on, the access plates
Absolutely.
in the poles, because there's a lot of them missing. There's a lot of lights that are working that they didn't get those cover plates back on, the light
Yes.
pole itself. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Okay.
So do we need to go back to the people that did that work and have that fixed?
Well, the same people.
I'll let them know. They'll do it.
Yeah, that's part of the job.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
All right, further discussion? All right, let's open this up, public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? All right, seeing no one, close public comment. Further discussion or motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve agenda item number 9.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous. All right, item 10, change order number 1, Mead and Hunt Sewer Lateral Lift Station Wet Wall Lining, the amount of $8,829. Lee, you got this.
Good evening. This project is the sewer lateral and lift station grant that we had from St. John's River Water Management District. And as you know, after this was successfully bid, awarded, and put under contract, the contractor chose to not perform. And we went through a period of several months where we went back and forth, and we were trying to get the surety to cover the cost of the low bid. And in that interim, because we didn't know how long it was going to take, we decided to cover our bases and rebid the project just to cover ourselves. And those bids came in. The low bid was actually 1.2 million almost, which was way beyond what the original low bid was with APT. In any case, we decided not to bring that to the commission, but rather continue on with our trying to negotiate with the surety company at APT. And then, to make a long story short, that process, as I said, took several months. We eventually did manage to reach a reconciliation, and that, of course, is the next item, and we'll get to that. But this particular change order is work that Mead and Hunt incurred that was not in their original scope to bear with us during this 3 months or 2 months of hiatus that we had since APT originally backed out of the contract. And Mead and Hunt worked with us faithfully to put the bid package together, put it out on the street, look at the bids, and attended various meetings and so forth. So the long and short of it is that we are asking for a change order in the amount of $8,829. That's substantiated in the attachment to this item to compensate Mead and Hunt for the additional work that they did.
Okay, questions?
No.
No questions?
Even David should be paid if he does the work.
I guess. All right, if there's no questions, we will open this up to public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on agenda item number 10? All right, seeing no one, will close public comment. Further discussion?
Motion to approve change order number 1 to Mead Hunt for the sewer lateral and lift station wet well lining city project.
I'll second the motion.
All right, motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous. Item 11. Lee, you back up. You didn't even need to sit down.
To the rest of the story.
Next chapter.
Yes, indeed. This actually covers, as I said, the rest of the story. We were able to finally meet with, we had a Teams meeting. We met with the principals of APT, and we went through a whole bunch of negotiating and tap dancing, which they did very well. But we finally came to the conclusion that to perform the contract, they needed to raise their bid from the original $772,157 to $989,657. And the delta between the two the president of the company, we had this hour and a half long meeting, and this gentleman never spoke up. And at the end of the meeting, he says, well, listen, let me see if I can get some additional funds from other sources, which he didn't name what those sources were. He said, please let me have 3 days. And on day 3, I got a call from St. John's project manager and said, guess what? We have some additional money for you. And they awarded us an additional $239,658.
Which just happened to be the right amount.
Just happened to be exactly the right amount. Well, the reason for that is I got a secondary call from St. John's and said, how much do you need to go from the original bid to the current top bid? And I said, we needed $239,658. And if you look at the agenda item, I'm trying to explain this to you, how we came up with these numbers. The $239,658 is the difference between the original project amount, which was $750,000, and the $989,657 that was there that now was APT's low bid. So that was where that number came from. The amount of the change order, however, is $258,561, and that is derived from the difference between the original bid of $772 and change to their $989,657.72.
So is it 772 or 722? Because it's what our...
722,157.
Okay.
Yeah, that was their original low bid. Our proviso going into this was that the city would not pay another nickel to cover any additional costs. I might add that in these numbers is included $9,324, and that pays for Mead and Hunt's work getting to this point. This was above and beyond the change order you just approved. And Drew's cost. So they've agreed to pay that number as well on top of everything. So the final number accounts for that. So 258,561 is the change order we're recommending for this. It's a long story, but it gets us there. We don't have to pay another nickel, and we'll finally get this project underway, hopefully.
And this doesn't cost the city any money, well, minus the original agreement.
Our original 250.
We are where we were at the beginning when we first selected this contractor.
Right.
That was a whole lot of work for that.
Yep.
Commissioner Bellhamer?
Hey, Lee, the first bid and the first contract at 722, was that any St. John's money in that?
Oh, yes. The 500,000 St. John's, 250 us.
Okay, so we typically have to pay 50% on the money they give us, right?
Actually, in this case...
That's the point I'm getting to.
Yeah.
We didn't have to pay 50% on top of the money they gave us, which we typically have to do when we get money from St. John's.
That is correct.
So that's...
Yes, our contribution with the change order is the same as our contribution was in the original contract. You're correct.
Yeah. The actual grant was 500,000.
I just wish I'd been along when you went and got the money.
I sincerely apologize for that, Commissioner. I had no idea that it's my fault. I was on vacation, and I asked Mike if he could go as interim
like you told me today, it came up real fast, but just remember me next time.
Let's hope there is no, there will be next times, absolutely.
Further discussion?
I'm good.
All right, we'll open this up, public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on agenda item number 11? Seeing none, we will close public comment. We're not going to pose it.
Don't
Further discussion.
Motion to approve change order number 1 to Advanced Plumbing Technology for sewer laterals and lift stations.
Second.
All right, a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous. Next item, we receive fiscal year 21-22 audit report. Rhonda?
I'd like to introduce Webb Shepherd from James Moore to review the results of the audit from our fiscal year end 22. And I would also like the opportunity to follow his discussion with the response to his presentation, if I could. Webb?
Hi, everybody. My name is Webb Shepherd, partner with James Moore and Company. Thanks, Penny. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Quick, before do we
We
have
don't-
any, do
we
we have
don't
any
have-
backup on this?
The slide?
So we, usually you guys bring hard copies at the meeting.
Oh, I totally apologize. I thought you guys had copies already in your agenda packet.
And it takes time to go through that.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll
It's
offer.
not any staff fault.
I'll offer one-on-ones with you all, you know, if you want
We
to.
have to vote as a group. That's,
Okay.
no.
So
Should we come back? I mean, we can,
I sent you the electronic copy. Are you sure?
Did anybody else get an electronic copy?
I don't know. I was waiting on the paper copier, or assumed we would get one, but
The last thing I remember is they're going to bring it with them.
I thought I attached the electronic copy and said that they bring a hard copy with them.
I didn't get that. I apologize. That's our fault for not asking and.
Drew, what action is this item?
It's really, it's a report. Here, traditionally, you have voted to accept the audit, It's not required that you do that vote, but it's not abnormal either. And I think Commissioner Mealy's point is, you don't have anything to accept, so you can't, yeah. And I know, so this commission takes a lot of interest in that audit report, and there are lots of questions, and you don't get to ask your questions because you don't have anything in front of you to look at. I understand.
So we can come back. I mean, I'm no problem coming back to give you time to digest it and.
There was an electronic copy.
was?
sent out. Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
When was that sent?
That was in the, when Penny sent out the electronic copy of the agenda.
Last Friday.
Last Friday, I'm
I
looking at
even
it right
got
here.
an email from a citizen about it, so it's out there.
Yeah, it's
And then
right here.
we have it, yeah. 'Cause I remember going
When
through it,
with the agenda packet?
yeah.
Yes, it was a
You can
separate,
trust us,
it was
it's
a
there.
separate attachment.
I mean, honestly, I don't think this agenda item is worth holding up because we don't have paper copies of something we received electronically.
I
That's
agree.
my thoughts.
Well, I was waiting, oh, here, wait a minute. All right, it said here's a link to the agenda packet, which I did not click on because I had already picked this up.
Where I'm confused is if he was going to bring the agenda packet today, you would be just looking at it now while he's going through the presentation.
Well, I wasn't happy with that either, but at least I would have had,
Well, we received electronic copies. So did the public. That's out there. So does this board want to delay this item, waiting on paper copies? And if so, did you want to push it further into the meeting, or did you want to reschedule it? But
I would like to reschedule it.
I would say continue. We are not that archaic as a commission and as a community, and be respectful of someone's time as well, that we can go through the presentation and go through the electronic and continue on with city business.
Well, thank you for calling me archaic.
I didn't.
Uh,
I said we are not that archaic. We. I
Well-
did not say Jane.
is there any other
I'm
thoughts?
okay with moving forward with it. I mean, don't know if there's any actionable, I mean,
So we're not going to be accepting it, we're only going to be hearing it?
We can
I don't really know if there's much of a difference. I mean, we received a copy of it. The only, we are talking the difference between electronic reception of it and paper. That's it. We all received a copy of it. The public received a copy of it.
Go do it. I'm opposed to it, but go do it.
Other commissioners, thoughts? Move forward or not?
I'm just used to having a paper copy in front of me when they review the,
Okay, do you
When they
all
go
want to
through
push
the
this item so they can get copies made? And just do it later in the meeting, or do we want to
I'm all
reschedule?
right with that,
You're all right with what?
later in the meeting.
Okay.
If we can get a copy of it.
So let's hold this item, and Penny, if you can get hard copies for everybody from the electronic file we received. All right, so we will move on to approve and adopt item 13. We haven't covered that one yet, right?
No.
Okay, approve and adopt, I'm getting all my agenda items
Yeah, we
messed
did
up here.
14.
No, we-
Approve and adopt compensation study as presented by Evergreen Solution at the June 22nd meeting. So Liz, you're now up.
Hello. Okay, tonight, this is to approve and accept the, let me back up a little. We had a presentation on the June 22nd meeting from Evergreen, and this is to approve the pay ranges that were recommended and the way to determine the pay ranges. So it all goes back to that presentation. We had the presentation, but we did not adopt the pay ranges from that. There's no budgetary impact in this. This is just going forward and aligning changing to the new pay ranges and using the recommended pay ranges from the study.
All right, discussion about this item. Commissioner Valiamer.
Liz, I only got two questions. One of which is the planner's position, which requires certain credentials and so forth. It just doesn't seem like, are we going to have difficulty hiring a planner at this
You'll
rate?
probably get that coming back to you, talking about classification. In the original study, the planner position is put in there, but I have it's my feeling that it was looked at as a planner with a larger department, maybe a planner, but not, we have one planner, that oversees all the planning for the city. There's no planning department. It's more of a senior planner or kind of directs that whole department. I'm working on looking at that job description and changing possible changes with that, but that would come back to you with a reclassification of that position.
Okay, my second question is, why isn't there engineer on here?
Okay, so we try.
Well, currently, we do not have that position.
Well, we don't have somebody in a planner position either, so we don't have it? We didn't do away with it, did we? Or did we?
Yeah, it's not been budgeted.
I know it's not
Yeah.
budgeted, but it's still a job.
As far as I was under the impression we were not looking to fill that position.
Well, at some point, we may want to, so why wouldn't we include that in the studies? My question.
Well, we
I
looked at
mean,
the positions we
all the way
had.
up through our budget, the workshop, we were talking about, the feasibility of rehiring an engineer. So I don't understand why that wasn't included with the study.
Well, the original study, it was with the positions that we had, the positions that we were utilizing. This is not completely like black and white. There are going to be changes, and we will have to add, there's a lot of positions that are not included in this.
Well, when a engineer is added, then that data is going to go into the system, and that job will get posted and everything else. That would get worked.
Just thought it might have been part of it.
Concerning Rick's comment about a planner, though, the entire purpose of doing this is to get all of this done and finalized. And now we're saying that the planner one is still wrong and it needs to come back again. And the whole purpose of this was to ensure that that was not going to happen, that this was researched, fixed, and done. And it's not. Is this worth moving forward with? Because I don't want to improve something that is incorrect and we got to come back with it.
Could
City Manager?
Yeah, could I address that? One thing to look at, a compensation plan is fluid, always it will be fluid. As you look at different positions, I'm going to go back to the engineer to kind of bring that in scale. When in the budget process, it was decided that we would allow that to go to this Dale Martin, who's our new city manager, and he would analyze it with respect to what he saw as the needs. And what he will do is look at the various monies we're spending on engineers within our grants and determine how you would structure that position according to what he thought was wise for the organization. He would then go to Liz and say, that we have this position as being structured, where should it go in the compensation schedule? And so it wouldn't necessarily be in there until they reformat exactly what the duties and responsibilities are, and then it would be fit into that compensation plan. So I think it's important not to look at that plan as a permanently fixed schedule, because it's constantly going to be fluid as new positions come open, and you redesign those positions to fit whatever the needs of the organization are at that time. Does that answer the question?
That answers my question about the engineer.
It did not answer mine. Mine isn't really a question. Mine's more of an operational thing. The purpose of doing all these, we'll call them wrap-ups, right? Get everybody's pay fixed and everybody's job slotted correctly. The planner position, we're being told, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the planner position job classification is still not correct. And that's what's in front of us. So we have, now there's a lot of other things, but we have already, this exact thing is going to have to come back before us again because the planner position is misclassified.
Or you might, because that's why I keep leaning forward and debating whether or not to open my mouth on this one, but as I look at what they have here for planner, I wouldn't call it wrong. Yeah. Because it's consistent with what I would expect to see working with planners, but I think like what Liz was trying to say was this number is really if you have a planner 1, or depending on where they are on the range, a planner 1 or planner 2 if they're lower down. But those planners, that's probably right for the position. They're working under a senior planner or a planning director. And so really, I don't know that what you have, if that what you have here is wrong. It's that really the position that you're looking to fill is not just a planner, it's senior planner or planning director.
That's a very good summary.
Any other comments on this form?
That's what I had. Thank you.
No?
No, and this does not include the positions, the pays that we just approved before for police and fire. They're not in here.
Remember, they are separate.
Separate, that's what I just said.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, we'll open this up, public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on agenda item 13? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment. Further discussion?
I'll make a motion that we approve and adopt the compensation study.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous. All right, we will go to item 15, which is a request from Flagler County Board of Commissioners, Greg Hansen, for a letter of support regarding the proposed half-cent small county discretionary sales tax.
Hello, how are you all?
You're
Howdy.
hiding back there.
Doesn't look like Greg
You didn't see
Hansen
me
to
come in? I didn't make a grand enough entrance? Okay. Next time I'll drop my stuff and then you'll notice me. I'm here not to address this issue except to bring to you a request from Commissioner Sullivan, David Sullivan, who is going to be here tonight to address this, but he was out of town, had some issues, plus he's doing some further work on this, and he would like you to table it until your next meeting, if you would, please.
Okay. That's it?
Yeah, unless you have any questions about that.
Any questions for Al while he is up here before we get into discussion?
He's not talking
got
about the
questions
beach.
for Al.
He's not talking about the beach.
What's that?
I said you're not talking about the
Not in
beach.
this, not on this agenda item.
I will if you want. I mean, it's up to you.
All right. Appreciate it, Al. You can have a seat. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll have a discussion about it. Okay, so we have this, and then we have a request to table. Thoughts?
Guess I'd be okay to table. I mean, I can save my rounds on this for once we hear more, I guess. I kind of was reading through this, but I mean, unless everybody wants to talk about it now, I guess I can.
No, I'd rather wait.
Yeah, I'd rather wait. I don't want
rather
to
wait
spill
as
the
well.
beans just yet. Wait and see what
I'd like to see what changes.
Dave's putting together.
Yeah, same.
All right, so it sounds like we have a consensus on that.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we table this until a future meeting.
I'll second that motion.
Drew, do we need public comment on that? Okay, because we're not taking action. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimous. We'll table that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Al.
Time for cake.
Do y'all need a break?
That'll work out pretty good. Penny can finish up what she's
We could do
doing.
17 and do a break.
Well, if we're going to wait to,
Okay, y'all want to resume
Quarter of?
20 of? Does that work? Or if we're going to have cake, you want to resume? quarter
oh,
of?
cake.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Cake.
All right, let's,
Let him eat cake, right?
are y'all okay with resuming quarter of?
That's good.
This way our city manager can have his cake?
Absolutely.
All right, we'll resume quarter of. Oh, sorry, eating. Rhonda, can you check with Penny on the feed, make sure we get
Is I was slow in 15, it was tabled. Rick made the motion, James was second.
All right, we're a quarter of. We are resumed. And Bob, just to end the debate, it's quarter of. All right, so we're going to go back to item 12, which is receive fiscal year 2021-2022 audit report. And we got Rhonda, we got Audit Dude, and we have our paper. All right.
Papers.
Yep. All right, good to see you again.
I apologize. I didn't think to ask about paper copies. Some want, some don't.
We're gonna
Even though it won't happen again, I promise.
We're gonna send you the bill.
Yeah. Thank you. My goal is to get in front of this and be early enough, because you know there's a June 30th deadline with the state. So my goal is to get in front of this, of course, with Rhonda's assistance, so that we can offer you one-on-ones to go through the financial statements individually if you all want to take me up on that. I would love to sit down with you and really go over it and, you know, one-on-one ask any questions that you might have or go through it. We were, you know, pressed up against the timeline, so there wasn't really enough time for that this year or the year before, really. But as you know, you've had a lot of transition, so I think all things considered, you know, we're in pretty good shape at this point. So first of all, big thank you to Rhonda and the Finance Department. Thank you to Penny for making copies, for my oversight, printing everything out, and I apologize to Penny as well. We appreciate the opportunity, you know, to serve in this capacity, and we'll just dive right into it.
All right.
Is it?
You might have to wake that clicker up again.
Hold on. I'm wearing all the hats tonight. It's going again. Thanks for that raise, by the way.
That was the intent. If you're going to do more, which we're just going to keep piling it on, might as well give you a little bit.
Oh.
All right.
Okay, push it like you mean it. I thought it was going to run an update on us, so thank you for that. All right, so the first bullet here is the audit report on the financial statements. So there's an unmodified opinion. That's the best opinion that we can provide, and that's really the report that you want to see there. It states that we take a top-down approach to auditing management's financial statements. We are independent. We work for you. Commission, we don't work for management. Our responsibility is to form and express an opinion that your financial statements are presented fairly in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. The second bullet there is the internal control report. That one's required by governmental auditing standards. States that we consider internal control but do not provide an opinion on its operating effectiveness. There were no material weaknesses found as a result of our audit procedures. That is an improvement over last year, if you recall. We did have a material weakness. We had material audit adjustments, really, if you will. We still had 3 significant deficiency comments. The IT controls, that one was partially resolved from last year, but the finance director still has the full administrative rights to the accounting software. So that's not ideal. It's a segregation of duties issue. The next one is also a repeat. It was really the same issue from last year. Journal entry controls, out of the 25 that we tested, and the journal entries are the general journal entries, the ones, oh yeah, go ahead.
Just one quick question.
Sure.
So it appears we do not want the finance director to have administrator rights to accounting software. What is the recommendation on that?
To have someone such as the IT department or IT director, or if you outsource that they're the only ones who have full administrator rights, because with those administrator rights, she could effectively go in and change code. So she has rights to literally do everything.
Okay.
Which is it's not ideal, yeah.
Don't change the code.
I mean,
No, I won't.
and it's not that she would, right? But it's that she could, and that's why it's a control deficiency like
Makes
that.
sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So just to make sure we all understand, if we don't have an IT department, because we use the county for our IT,
Well, and it could be someone else. Now, it could be just the county, but it also could be, city manager is the one who has those rights, and just take it away from the actual finance director who's in there working every day, posting entries, because she can circumvent the controls that are built in already. If there were any if there were any computer controls in there, with that access, she could basically go in and do anything. Again, not that she would, but that she could, and you don't want.
so it could be the city manager.
It could, yeah.
Okay, we don't have to hire another company.
No.
Okay.
And if I could provide a comment, and I already talked to county IT, and since we have Nick here a couple of days a week, we're going to turn that role over to him to take it away from me.
Oh, great.
So he will,
Yeah.
he will have the full access rights, but I'll only have the rights to do certain things.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Which I'm sure that's what she wants anyway. She probably doesn't want that. I wouldn't want that if I were you. The next one is the preparation of financial statements, and all related footnote disclosures and supplementary schedules in their entirety. So the comment there is just no one on staff has the knowledge, skills, and experience to prepare all of the related footnote disclosures and supplementary schedules in their entirety. And we know that you're working with Rhonda to get training and all that stuff, so hopefully that'll, you're closing the gap on that as well, making improvement. And there were 3 or 4 others from last year that were fully resolved. So everything's moving in the right direction. I just want to point that out, that it's, that's positive movement, which is nice to see, especially with all the transition that's going on. The third bullet there is the Auditor General letter. The AG requires us to look at certain things, primarily financial condition assessment and other key metrics. There were 3 more recommendations for improvement. Those are much lower than what we consider a deficiency. The OPEB census data, there were just a couple minor issues. A birth date didn't agree, and there was one other census data thing that didn't agree before it was sent off to the actuary. I believe the actuary probably has controls in place to catch that, but the point is you're not supposed to use them as part of your internal control system. Then we recommend that you establish a fund balance policy, which I believe you guys have started working on. It's just nice, and we'll talk about that some more in the next slide or 2. And then the pure fund has a deficit unrestricted net position there because the general fund is basically subsidizing the pure fund right now. So the last bullet there is the examination report, which really states that you're in compliance with specific investment policy statutes and no exceptions found as a result of our audit procedures, which is the report that you want to see there. This is a history of your general fund, all the different components of the fund balances. These are mostly comparable year over year, and the increase in unassigned there is primarily due to decreased assigned amounts. Tax revenues were up year over year, but expenditures increased a little more than revenues. The non-spendable that you see there, that's the advance to the peer fund, primarily. The restricted amount is primarily restricted for capital projects at the state surtax primarily. The assigned is budgeted use of the fund balance in 2023. So I got to take you back. Remember, we're at September 30th, 2022. I know you guys have been in budget mode for 2024, so it's kind of a step back a little bit, I understand. So, but that budgeted use of fund balance was really fiscal 23, so. Maybe. There it is. So the GFOA, and this is part of your fund balance policy as well, the GFOA recommendation states that the GFOA is the Government Finance Officers Association. Sometimes I forget to mention that, and people, what in the heck is GFOA? They recommend a minimum of 2 months of fund balance for your, 2 months of recurring expenditures that you carry in effectively your unassigned fund balance there. So you all have about 8 months at September 30th, 2022, or 70%, which is a healthy position there in the general fund. The 2021% was 94%, so. There is a separate financial statement audit over the CRA fund. That one's required by state statutes. So there's a separate audit, and it's got an unmodified opinion, again, the best one we can provide. Effectively, there were no issues with the CRA audit. The one same comment as the city audit for the prep of financial statements. But everything else is all the reports that you want to see there. Last year, we had some significant journal entries. This year was pretty smooth sailing, so appreciate that. I know it's not me. Whoops, did I go in too far? Okay. It's the right button, I think. Oh, wait. Yeah. So this is a history of the unrestricted net position in all of your proprietary funds here. These are mostly comparable to prior year. The water and sewer fund actually had $2.6 million in revenues over expenses, but it was all invested into capital assets, which is why the unrestricted net position looks pretty comparable there. The sanitation fund had a $100,000 loss for the year, and invested in capital assets increased, which is another component of your fund balance there, the restricted component, and that caused the decrease here in the unrestricted and sanitation. Stormwater had $200,000 revenues over expenses, and that increased unrestricted here. And you know about the pier fund, that's really just the due to, due from, the general fund there, so. Little history on your pension funds here. So at year end 2022, these were net pension assets, which looks fantastic, but I'll just caution you that keep in mind the fiscal year 2022 investment losses aren't reflected there because these are measured and valued by the actuaries a year in arrears. So I went and looked at the most updated ones, which came in after this, and fiscal 23, which you'll see in next year's audit, fire was still at 100% funded, and police was down to 72%. So not too bad there, but just kind of keep that in mind when you see that, like, wow, net pension assets, that looks great. The investment returns and the way the market is performing has a lot to do with that and how funded those are, so. I always like to look at the contributions as a % of employee payroll there. Police and fire are variable defined benefit plans. So they're 27% contributions as a % of employee payroll, fire's at 20%. And then all of your general employees, as you know, are defined contribution rate of 6.5% fixed rate. Couple of the items. Note 8 is your long-term liability, so I always like to point that out. Governmental activities, there's $474,000 in the CRA fund. There was no new debt this year. And business type, there's $3.6 million in debt. And as you know, the SRF loan for the water treatment facility, that's at $224,000 in new debt because you all are still continuing to build that out. GASB 87 was implemented in fiscal year 2022, and that was no small feat. That's the leases standard, and that did affect you all. GASB 96 is subscription-based IT arrangements, so that is looking at all of your different software solutions, and where you lease software, you're effectively gonna capitalize any of those that come into play there. We haven't evaluated that thoroughly yet to see how it'll affect the city, but I imagine it will. You certainly have some software at least needs to be evaluated at minimum, because that one is effective for September 30th, 2023 year end. And then the year after that, never a dull moment with the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. It compensated absences. That one's effective for September 30th, 2024. And that's all I got for you. Any questions or?
All right, questions about the audit? Or comments?
If, when I have a chance, I read through this and I find questions, can I call you?
Absolutely, yes. Please feel free, and please do that. Don't hesitate to call. I'm available to you all anytime.
Any other questions or comments? Rhonda?
Okay, I just wanted to just make a couple comments after Webb's presentation and kind of address the three items that he presented. And we already just discussed the IT controls, so we're just going to turn that over to IT, and I don't have a problem with that, especially now that we have somebody that's in-house and is here 2-3 days a week. As far as the journal entry controls, we do have a process in place right now that we implemented in 22-23, so that any kind of journal entries that my staff makes, I review and sign off on, and any entries that I make, city manager signs off on. So there is a secondary signature on every journal entry that takes place in BSNA. And then as far as the preparation of the financial statements, I know training is a must for me, and I've identified that, and I'm going to follow that up with like all my staff members as well. So, and I have talked to Webb and his staff about doing basically an after audit meeting and going through where the deficiencies lie and put together a program to make sure that going forward that we know exactly what needs to be done as far as the audit goes. And I've even reached out to my counterparts in Palm Coast. It's like, hey, what do you guys do? Do you have like a standard checklist that you do quarter end, year end, which Shannon, I believe is her name. Yes, Shannon, their senior accountant, has already shared with me. So we're going to be putting some processes in place to make sure that myself as well as my staff, gets done what needs to get done as far as just day to day. So, and like I said, it's just, I know I need training, and one of my personal goals is to continue on with my governmental finance classes. I have taken a beginning one, but there's like 2 more classes that need to be taken, so I'm definitely going to follow up on those as well. And soon, hopefully we get an assistant on board very, very soon, so that will free up some of my day-to-day time so that I can pursue that as well. So that's all I want to say.
All right,
thank you for the opportunity.
Questions or comments on the audit?
Need time to read it.
Yeah, I just have, on this other sheet that we got, just kind of a summary, I guess, right? Significant risks identified. So override of internal controls by management. Was that software thing you were talking about?
So that's a very astute observation. That is new in the audit letter now. Those significant risks have always been there as part of our audit procedures and our internal documentation. We've been required, 15 years or so when that standard came out, to identify significant risks. A couple of them are required in every single audit across the board, every single financial statement audit, I should say. Override of management controls is one of them, because there's always that risk that management could override lower than level management controls. So it's always been a risk. We identified it, and all that means is that we're looking at that area closer. We're always using our professional skepticism to keep that in mind, in the forefront of our minds as we're working through our audit procedures. So that's why those are there. They just came out and said, hey, these need to be put out there. Like you all have identified these significant risks. You need to put these in the letter. So that's why they're there now.
So when it kind of aroused my attention was improper revenue recognition due to fraud.
Yeah, that's a required
Just
That same
required
exactly.
language needs to be in there.
That's not a finding. That's-
It's absolutely not a finding.
Okay.
That is a goal, like what you're looking for.
Correct,
That's
yeah.
not a report on stuff they found.
We always have sort of our fraud hat on, and there's no materiality on fraud. If
Right,
somebody
but
steals a
that's what they're
penny,
trying to identify.
it might as well be $1 million, you know.
Okay. All right.
With that risk identified, just from my perspective, what that means is that those are identified risks that are endemic to what they're looking at, and so they pay close attention. Did I fairly
Okay.
state that? It's not that it's not that they're saying this is a risk for Flagler Beach. This is a risk for everybody, so we're going to take a close look at it.
Okay.
Correct. Now, there could be just specific to the city, but we haven't identified any that we're aware of at this point, so those are pretty standard ones, if you will.
All right, further questions or comments?
Well, the bottom line is, this page in the back, 68. In our opinion, the city of Flagler Beach, Florida complied with all materials, in all material respects with the aforementioned requirements for the year ending September 30th. So that's, I guess, what we're looking for.
It is. Those are all the reports that you're really looking for. I mean, there's always room for improvement, so those are the comments, but those are all the good reports that you're looking for with unmodified opinions and everything. Those are the best we can provide and really what you want to see there.
So can we get a copy of your presentation?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, Penny. That's all I got.
That's how I always read these reports from the back, looking for those things.
Start with the good stuff. And the management's discussion and analysis is the first 10-ish pages there. That's a summarization put together. So if you're looking for sort of the cliff notes to make it a little easier to digest, that's a good place to start. Read through that, and it's just kind of easier to read through, and it talks about a lot of the fluctuations and things, but also the balances. So in the financial statements, I think it might be the first 11, 12 pages after the table of contents there. Look in the table of contents in this section called Management Discussion and Analysis. That, I think, is the place to start. And then if you want more granular information, if you really want to dive into the details, flip back to the notes and the financials to kind of summarize. And I'm happy to go through all of that. I really enjoy this stuff, so I'm happy to dive in with you. So, yeah.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
And if we don't have any comments on here, just go open up to
Have
public.
a card or something, I don't
Oh, yeah.
know how to get you.
I just forwarded that email, it has this contact information.
Oh, it does.
All right, let's open this up, public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on agenda item number 12? All right, seeing no one, close public comment.
Thank you.
And look for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept the report, audit report
I'll second the
for
motion.
fiscal year. You need the fiscal year,
It's in the agenda that you've cleared.
which is 12, right? For the fiscal year 21-22.
And I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you all.
Thank you for your
Thank you,
time.
Penny and Rhonda. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll move on to item 17, review of plan of action for future joint cities and county meetings, including major points to be covered, and the role of the Flagler Beach City Commission. City Manager, you want to kick us off on that?
Certainly. Mr. Chair, Commission, you have, as part of your package, two summaries. One, the minutes from the joint city-county meeting, and then another abbreviated bullet list of points that came from that meeting that somewhat parallels and overlaps with the minutes, but just brings it aside for you to look at. So based upon your direction, we're presenting that to you tonight with the recommendation that you review it and provide the staff with direction that you would like to follow with respect to a future meeting and any agenda that you would like us to prioritize so that we could contact the county and respective cities to keep the movement going as Flagler Beach really serving as the leader in this effort for trying to identify future needs and the resources that are needed to meet those needs. So that is the reason for the agenda item.
All right, and at the tail end of the meeting, there was numerous, we wanted to have a couple things that each particular municipality was going to work on. And if y'all would just bear with me, I know you got it in front of you here, but number one is an action item for Flagler Beach that was recommended by this group was to get a survey in place so we know, we have the data that, who are the people that are at the beach, where are they from, and, what's kind of the purpose of the visit. Because you can't even develop tactics until you have that type of data. And so that was called out right off the bat. And it's unfortunate because I do not believe that tourism they have close to that data, but they don't have that exact data that we would be looking for specific to who's on the beach. They have, why did you come to Flagler County type data.
And it was done quite a long time ago, I think.
Right, it was done pre-COVID, right at just before COVID started, so that puts it about 4 years, I think, 3 years, 4 years. And obviously, it was like 90% of people came to the county for the beach, but then the question becomes, who's on the beach and why are we there? And so that was one of the biggest call outs because you can't move forward without that data. That data is going to point you in the direction you need to go. There was a suggestion made by the group on expansion of the guarded area. I mean, there was even conversations that was within that group about the entire city limits get covered by lifeguards, which would cost millions of dollars that apparently we were going to pay. The only pushback that I would have being, part of this group is that I think there was a little misinterpretation of that point because the intent I really believe is to expand the guarded areas into other areas of the county, like Varn, Malacompra, and that kind of thing. If we expand the guarded area here in Flagler Beach, well, that's all good and well, you're exacerbating the issue.
Yeah, you're just bringing more people.
Right, you're trying to force more people into an area that doesn't have the carrying capacity in one. And I, just want to preface all these comments. These comments are not about current times. These comments are about 5 years from now or more. And with the rate of people that are being added to the county at a furious rate, 5 years from now, this is going to be a significant logistical problem. And I might need your help, Mayor, with this one. I know that the county tax collector was working on data on the actual number of residences that were actually added, because nobody knew, because there's so much. And
they just added 2 new ones today.
Right, yeah.
Oh, yesterday.
It's at a furious pace, and it was something, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but it was something around 29,000.
It was 29,000 units approved, and then you have to assume 2.5 people per unit. Unit, house, homestead, all of the above.
And that didn't include the 2 with that Palm Coast
That did not include the 2 for Palm Coast for today.
Yeah, it's every day.
So that adds up to 75,000 or so people.
Right. Which is I'll say it, when we first pitched this meeting to county and, when I was citing population numbers, we had a publication say, oh no, the numbers that Eric's using are exaggerated. They're not exaggerated. There's, we have, what's the latest number? 120,000 people in county, 130,000?
I think 20,
Yeah.
120.
So around 120. So we've just approved within the last year as a county, another around 70,000 people. So once these units are here and built, which is about 5 years, or less, you're talking 200,000 people in county. And and when we looked at that map, they're all coming to this tiny little geographic area, getting bottlenecked here because the hidden beaches and the small beaches and the no parking. And there's a lot of reasons why they're coming here, and a lot of those reasons are good, which brings you to, and I'm kind of beating a dead horse, but just to bring everybody up to speed that might be just tuning in, you end up having a conflict between our locals, which is who we are obligated to protect, and our businesses, who we are obligated to protect, all of those interests of quality of life, competing with tourists and competing with county residents, and all fighting for the same amount of small geographic space. And let's be real, every single year and every single storm that happens, there's less and less parking on A1A. So all of those factors together is the inspiration for the meeting, and to talk about not just beach access, but bigger issues. But I'll get through this here real quick. So the lifeguards, what kind of got lost in translation, I think we're going to end up having to revisit. And we really got to take a hard look at, working with county on helping to encourage them that there's lifeguards needed at other places as well. Then the other thing is remove the toll, that's not tool, but toll from the Hammock Dunes Bridge. We're okay with it having tools. And that was just to encourage beach traffic to go to what, County Commissioner Sullivan affectionately referred to as the 6 hidden beaches of the county that nobody knows exists, including county and Palm Coast residents. And if that toll is removed, that's going to encourage traffic to just, visit the beaches north. 100 is not tolled. And so if you have to decide when you're in Palm Coast, if you're making a left or a right to which beach you go to, you're going to head to Flagler Beach. And then based on that, it just becomes a matter of cramming yourself in. Another bridge.
It's a quick question. Where's the toll revenue go now?
Hammock Dunes Community, whatever that's called there.
So
There's a CDD.
there's going to have to be a revenue source to take care of the bridge.
I thought they
They
said
wanna
during that meeting,
take the toll
DOT wanted to
The
take
suggestion
over.
was to give it back to DOT.
Okay.
DOT has interest in it,
Mm.
and they wanted to, it was suggested that the bridge go back to DOT.
Definitely have to revamp that intersection on the east side.
Yeah, and that's already a existing tactic of county now.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, they have some lobbying efforts around that. Then it was brought up that there needs to be another bridge to access the ocean further north in the county, because you have a bottleneck in just getting across the IC, and then the first one that's there, other than the one at the south side, which is us, is tolled. So these are all multiple pieces. That's another long-term project. Emphasis on ecotourism. There are things to do in Flagler County other than just go to the beach, and in this case, the only non-hidden beach of Flagler Beach. So, I don't think that's really going to have any type of measurable impact on what we're looking at as far as getting people beach access, proportionally to the population, which is really the issue. Because
I think if somebody wants to go to the beach, you can't say,
right,
go on that trail
right,
instead.
Go get on your mountain bike you don't have.
Yeah, no.
Right. There was talk about paid parking for beach parking, but that again that's not addressing the problem of how do you balance the logistics of getting 200,000 people to the beach as opposed to what we have now of 100,000. So that, it could act as a potential deterrent if you're looking to get logistics. If you're looking to move people to certain areas, that can be used for something like that, or productivity of parking spots. But that really, that particular initiative that was brought up, that doesn't address what we're looking for. And then there was other things brought up like affordable housing, just the maintenance of A1A, traffic throughout the county. But there's I was in discussions with city manager about this. There is, we just had, county reached out to us for a problem that they have in county. And this is also a problem that Palm Coast is having actually at the same time is there is, for instance, road work needed all over the county. And if you have been following meetings, both county and Palm Coast are trying to figure out revenue sources for that and what to do with that. And that's kind of really the intent of the meeting is to look at, larger potential county problems that are coming in the future and how can we collectively address that as municipalities. And, there isn't a better venue to talk about revenue sources, which would be what that letter was, than this particular meeting. And I know county asked that making the recommendation in the letter, it was a very specific agenda item, but perhaps, as a suggestion, and is maybe a letter about talking about this in the actual multi-municipality meeting is really the best venue to do that. Because who better to talk about this particular thing than everybody that is from the municipalities in the same room at the same time? Because Palm Coast is having the issue, county's having the issue. We don't really have an issue, but we got to take care of our roads too. And our roads are interesting because our roads get traveled on by tourists as well. There's not, let's just be real, there's not a lot of tourism rolling around out in Farmland County and in Palm Coast cruising through, C and R section only, just checking out the sites. So if, and one of the things that potentially could get brought up in the meeting is, that hasn't been factored in because according to them, they had some secret formula that went off population or something like that. But that's a whole nother animal. But that would be the venue for that particular thing. I don't know if y'all have even an appetite of, potentially offering a suggestion letter about, hey, maybe the multi-municipality meeting would be that, or just, maybe staff could have that discussion verbally, and there's not even a letter that needs to be had. The city manager, do you have any thoughts on that?
My perception is that it would have greater strength if the commission was behind a policy action or request that went to the elected body and then staff followed up with the respective staff of the cities and the county, if that makes sense.
I don't like your idea of making it a policy action where they have to bring it to that meeting. That was a joke. We can't force them to do that. Do y'all have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that of the things that are listed here, the most immediate thing we could do is the survey about the beach.
Yeah.
And I like that because I know that what the TDC did has slightly different bent to it, and it's at least 4 years old. So that could be something done immediately. As to the county's request, it does belong here in this type of meeting. So since Mr. Abels feels that it would be stronger if it came from us than from staff. I think that we could say, that as a city commission, we met to discuss the results of that first meeting. This is what we came up with, and your request was very timely. How nice of you to ask us right now. And so to include that and to have a meeting real soon, and we could talk about it to include everybody together. Something like that.
How y'all feel about that?
Yeah.
I like what Commissioner Really proposed there. I think it's important that the elected bodies from the respective municipalities come together to plan this out. And I agree too, again, with, I think something, I don't know how quick and easy it is, but again, to get the use of the beach, statistics there. Like you said, you have to have the data, right, the proof to show, and then that supports your case. I was actually going to ask the mayor a question too about, I think due north, I don't want to get too far ahead here on this, but I think there is opportunity to expand the beach access like we've all kind of talked about. It starts maybe with the, it's going to take a lot of planning, obviously, in years, but I think maybe one of the other starts is work with Marineland, right? I mean, you're beginning to see something come together there. If anybody takes that ride up there on the weekends, you've got a food truck up there now. You've got
they're maxed out.
Yeah, so I guess my question might have been for the mayor is, do you know if the mayor and Marineland has an appetite? I don't know if they have an appetite to take more on up there, but across the street, there's a lot of vacant land over there. And it's, is that an opportunity to turn that into an additional parking area to maybe, again, alleviate some of the, like I think you mentioned in the meeting, alleviate that casual beachgoer that's just trying to get to the beach. And there is, I don't know, again, maybe there is that opportunity there on the west side of the road in Marineland there for.
I have a mayor's meeting right in the first week or so of August. If she's there, I can definitely ask. That land is.
It's owned by the state.
Okay, I thought it was owned by the state.
Well, there's also the River to Sea Preserve up there that's owned by the county as well, with parking that's hardly utilized at all.
Okay.
The land that Commissioner Sherman's referencing was a parking area. It was just an unpaved parking area.
Okay.
And you can actually see where people used to park. You can actually see the aisles. The curb cuts are all there from the aisles. So, even if there was a use agreement drawn up or, anything like that.
I would like to include with our beach survey, because sometimes seeing the number in front along with the survey would be good, is an updated parking study. It might be we already have one, but how many spots that we have on the east side of A1A, how many spots we have in our lots, and how many spots that we have throughout the city. Because if we are future planning and we say, okay, on the east side of A1A, we have 200 spaces, they can forward think that those might go away out of the total of, picking a number out of the sky, 400 that we have available in the city.
Larry has that.
Okay.
He's got the parking spots.
And then also to include with that, just to add, how many are businesses use for that parking pool? So they have an idea of how many beachgoers can use of those spots.
What do you mean?
Well, we have in our parking pool, restaurants and different businesses can.
In that downtown exclusion zone, remember where they, if they're short, if the existing developments are short on parking and they're looking to do an expansion or something like that, that they can tap that pool. That's what the mayor's talking about.
Right, like Ted has some, and.
Yes.
So going to the beach survey, and I think you were talking about two different things, because the data for the beach is very different than like the data that we would need for our own use for parking spots.
Well, how many are in your party?
Right. How many people came to the beach on a random Saturday if we're going to do a survey?
If mom fills it out, is she alone, or does she have 14 kids with her?
Right. But I think what city manager would be looking for is just like a consensus to move forward with that survey, a general time frame of when we would need to have it done by. And of course, there's going to be a nominal cost to it as well. So we as a body would have to decide, are we okay with that cost to, is the cost to get that data worth it? There was a suggestion made about using lifeguard staff in off hours, not when they're not out in the chairs, or you bring somebody in for extra coverage and then they would do those surveys as one possible route. Because we're quickly coming out of beach season, so it would have to be something put together quick. If it was a big, expensive third-party provider, probably is not realistic. Are you all okay with just kind of instructing staff to put we'll call it a potential, proposal together?
So basically, you want to know how many there are, where they're from,
Why they're there?
why they're there. And that's,
Yeah, and
basically.
staff can kind of,
I mean, those are the main points, I think.
We have 2 Saturdays until school starts.
Yeah.
yeah, and without getting like super deep in the weed, I would probably just suggest, staff kind of put a couple things together and we just button it up and see what the cost would be to have people come in off schedule, say potentially lifeguards, and when they're not working the seats, they can go around getting the surveys done.
I think it's a great idea to do the beach, survey on users on the beach. That's something, we've been trying to approach or try and figure out what how many people we typically have coming here, and we just keep guessing. So I know we did it back in Larry's era at some point, didn't we?
Yeah, we didn't get very
But
far
it was,
with it.
yeah, so it's, to use our new city manager's term, kicking the can for a while now. So it's probably as good a time as ever to follow up on that.
So I guess 2 questions we would need consensus. Are you all comfortable with instructing city manager to just put, we'll call it just a proposal together, some ideas, and just to bring back to commission?
Yes.
So y'all-
Yes, for me.
Okay. And would you all be okay with whatever potential cost that would be to pull and get that data? Like, I'm sure they're going to have
putting a
that
big-
part of the proposal. But we have to be able to say, we would, I don't want them to put a proposal together and then we say, we don't want to pay it. We're just wasting people's
I
time.
know, but I don't want to put an open number out there.
Right.
Can I ask I think what you're trying to ask, Eric, is the commission okay with the concept of spending some money on that? And to your point, it's not a blank check, but you are okay with the idea that it's going to cost something. And I think that's probably what you're trying to cover.
You're so good at fixing things.
You're not okay with an $80,000 consultant?
I know.
So we're using the lifeguards?
Let the city manager put it together.
Okay.
And
And we,
staff to check the feasibility on how to do this, right?
and we know that the window, then if we come back to the commission, we're already back in school, and we'll really miss that summer break window of beachgoers.
Well, you don't have a choice.
Okay.
You got to give staff time to put it together.
Okay.
I mean, we'll still have the big summer crowds. It's just school's going to be in session. So
They
the
don't go to
validity.
school on weekends.
What?
They don't go to school on weekends.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
No, he's saying that we could do the survey on the weekend. I got you.
Right, yeah. And it would just be a weekend thing. All right, so it sounds like we got consensus on that.
Then the letter that we're going to write.
Yeah, did we do a consensus on the letter? We already had consensus on the
Did we
letter
have a
too, right?
consensus?
You got consensus on the letter, right?
Let me make sure that I understand the letter. The letter is based upon your recommendation with respect to the joint city-county meeting, not the surveyor. Is that correct?
Well, there's 2. So you got there was a consensus, I thought there was. Well, there is
On the
still.
survey.
On doing the letter about the tax,
Right.
suggestion of the multi-municipality meeting, just as a suggestion, that be the venue. And then the other consensus would be, put together probably for, I don't know if you can do it by next meeting, but it'd be preferred, or maybe the following meeting at the latest. I think Dale said he could have it by next meeting.
There's only one meeting in August.
Right, so we would really want it by August.
We can structure the letter such as we did the last letter. That seemed to be pretty effective. And so if that's up to if that meets the commission's desire, we could structure the same process for the letter.
Yeah, and then for the survey, there's a consensus to move forward with putting that. What would it be a suggested route to go? What staff would be utilized, what the cost would be, et cetera.
And your proposal will be on an agenda item at your next meeting.
Correct.
Yes.
Is that good with y'all?
Mm-hmm. He's running out of yellow paper.
How many pages deep are you? Well, that's not bad, although you got a lot of writing on those pages. You need one of those reporter things that they use in the court system. So the last thing is potential long-term suggestions of material or questions or anything that would need brought to this meeting. Commissioners, did y'all have anything else? So, the letter would be one. Any other things that are a concern of the city that we would want to table at this meeting?
I wouldn't think it would be good to, this is just a quick thought, to overload that meeting. That letter would be one thing. The survey would be another thing. And I think if they paid all their attention on those two things, that'd
be a win.
Sure would.
That would be a 200% increase.
So to keep adding more agenda items, I don't think it's a good idea.
Well, that gives time to think of some.
Right, and once we get the data from the surveys, then we can really start to develop tactics on our own, so we know who is coming to our beaches and for what purpose.
Right.
Mr. Sherman?
Yeah, the other question I might have is, do you think that we could get maybe some buy-in of, I don't know if this would be a topic that you, again, I agree, stick with these two topics, but can we get some buy-in from the county or even Palm Coast to see if they would be willing to help us survey up on the northern end where Marineland is located to, again, capture that data, what's going on up there, to get an idea of, get the appetite of what type of beachgoer you have there, just to kind of, again, formulate some sort of decision with your research. I mean, unless you think we should just zero. Okay. Yeah.
We can ask the 6 people that are up there.
That's true.
Well,
there's not many people up there.
Another question to ask would be, are they in search of a guarded beach as opposed to?
Oh,
well, that's a. Oh, you're talking about
for our survey.
The
survey.
The survey.
That'd be a question to.
That's a good potential.
Great question, Rick.
Yeah, and
a lot of people aren't overly concerned about that, or they would be parking all the way up to 18th Street.
Right. Okay, so we'll leave that alone, and it sounds like we got some good marching orders and everything on that. But that's kind of the full update on that. Did y'all have any other thoughts?
No.
City manager, you good?
We're good. I think I understand what direction you want to follow. And I'll brief Dale on what we did last time and how this fits into that general direction.
All right, I appreciate it. Sure you're not just checked out?
Well, that cake, I'm almost checked out, I'll tell you.
All right, so
he's got all day tomorrow.
And there's no action on that, but we have a quiet crowd, so I'll open this up to public comment. Anybody wish to speak on our public comment for item 17?
Bob Cunningham, Flagler Beach. Just wanted to let you know that when I was talking to the FDOT folks, we talked about the rumor that FDOT wants the toll bridge. They want to know who in FDOT's saying that, because they keep hearing people are saying they want it, but nobody at FDOT says they want it.
Nobody they know yet.
As of right now, they don't know who that mystical person is.
Yeah, That we would have to check with Commissioner Sullivan on to see who that person is. But I'll ask that question. Anybody else wish to speak? Public comment item 17. You just joined us.
Yeah, I just got home from work.
No, if you can talk, you gotta get up on the mic.
Okay.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Anthony Sinelli, next door, Flagler Beach. Paid parking, I think it's a good idea. You're talking about the tourists. It would be a user fee for the beach. I read something in the paper that they're picking up 3 times as much trash as they used to. The taxes on the parking lots that the city has, obviously that's a lost revenue source for the city. It would become a revenue source. The studies that have been done on paid parking shows that people tend to carpool if it becomes a valuable commodity. So, everyone's complaining about traffic, not enough parking spots. It solves a lot of its own problems, or it will help with some of the problems. It won't solve them. Also, with the technology today, pay by plate is a thing. If you've been to Miami or any big city.
Next door.
Next door.
Next door has that.
Yeah, they have that pay by plate. But it's easier if you're a municipality. And as far as the residents, because it is pay by plate, you could have cars that are registered in Flagler Beach not pay, because we're residents, we're already paying taxes here. But the people that come here, it would be a user fee. So I think it's a win-win for the city. So I'd like you to consider it. And the city did commission a parking survey.
Multiple. Times.
Yes.
And in the CRA, it's part of in the purpose of the CRA, it says to have paid parking, and that's never happened. So that's all.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak under public comment item 17? All right, seeing no one, close public comment. It's an interesting observation on the effect of paid parking on carpooling. That's interesting. That would be a whole nother set tactic outside of the 5-year plan for the the meeting that I sit on is for the multi-municipalities to focus on. But that would be a Flagler Beach specific issue that I'm sure at some point is going to come up. Yep. And I see you writing. He's already on page 7 now. All right. And so any further comments up here? Okay. I lost my agenda. All right, 18's done. We'll go to staff comments, city attorney.
Couple regarding code enforcement. We had our hearings yesterday, both parking citation appeals, and several property issues. One, though, that I know has been mentioned here recently was the old Johnny D's property, and the respondent, well, not the respondent was not present, but the respondent's realtor, just to bring you up to speed on that, the respondent's realtor was present. They actually had a deal for a buyer who's aware of the issues with the property, but that buyer fell through like the day before our code enforcement, the day before yesterday, or very shortly before yesterday, but they have talked to the owner. The property is actually sitting in a trust now, and that's where some of the problems are coming about, and getting the property into the hands of somebody who can do something with it. Because the current owner, she's old. It's in a trust, but the wife, she's older, and she's not going to be able to do anything with it.
Is it still the same family that's always owned that?
I don't think so.
Rossi?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No. But anyway, the realtor was here, and they're working on getting it. They are making progress, so we now have them into the system too, and they'll be back again next month. I think he set up a status conference. Another one that you may be interested in, the Butler and Butler property, the condominiums that's started, and they've them, and he does a really good job of working with people to try to get them motivated to take care of their own property, because as you know, with code enforcement, the only teeth we really have is fines, and with some of these really distressed properties, fines aren't going to do much either, because the problem is the current owner has run out of money often, and so he is working, as is your code enforcement staff, but the magistrate is working on them, but also working with them in those cases to try to get some movement, and I hope we're getting close to some movement on several of the ones that I've heard from you and that you've heard from the public. The other I do have a question about, and this involves the parking citation appeals. Based on the mayor's comments at, I think, the last meeting or the one before about turnout at beach cleanups, and that program may or may not be around for much longer. We've gone ahead and adjusted, so we still are sending people your way to try to help you, but we've also he is now giving the option of other community service, and we've created an affidavit to that effect so that we can verify if somebody isn't doing their community service here, that we can verify that they are in fact doing it. But we are still, as long as we have beach cleanups, we'll keep on sending people your way.
They call me still, and I give them and oddly, someone's like, at the hearing, they were told they have to call me.
Bonnie keeps giving them your card. Can you give me the information, if you'll send me the information that you give when somebody calls you, I'll get it to Bonnie, and
They're
we'll
just told that they have to call me and schedule it.
Yeah, just send to me everything
So my phone rings around the hook of people calling me.
Send me the information that you give to them, and what we'll do is we'll just start handing it out. These are the scheduled dates.
First Saturday of every month.
Yeah, that way they don't have to call you, because that's really the only reason that they're calling you is when am I going to be there? And so I think that's where the disconnect is code enforcement, the administrative staff doesn't know when the next one is. So if we have that list of dates, and if you'll just keep me informed if one's going to be canceled or something like that, I can make the adjustments. But if you just go through me, we'll make sure that, because that's been one of my motivations too, is for you to stop getting those phone calls.
Well, they are not always the first Saturday. They're most of the time, but I think having an actual yearly schedule, that would probably be the best thing.
Yeah, it'll actually help us a lot, because then we could also provide that. We just have a printout made for the magistrate, and he could ask the respondent as he does, can you do this within the next 30 days? And if we know exactly when the next one is, he can ask them, can you do it on this date? And then it makes it a little bit easier for us. But so we did have, and the case where it started yesterday actually was a good one for him to do what he did. It was a motorcyclist. It was a motorcyclist parked illegally, and as he often does, he converses with people. He does a really good job of educating, and this is why the law is what it is. And after he'd gone through that conversation with the appellant, instead of ordering community service or ordering him to pay the fine, he offered him the opportunity to go and talk to his group that he motorcycles with and explain to him what he got cited for so that they don't have the same problem. And in that case, I actually think it probably was a good opportunity to do that, because we don't have many motorcycles that come forward, and that is the main thing that we're trying to do is to educate people on what the laws are about parking. A lot of people say, well, this is the only time that I've ever been cited for this in Flagler Beach. It is. Most of these laws that we're enforcing are the law everywhere, but people like to say that
like nobody
only
knowing
Flagler
you
Beach
can park
does
the wrong
this.
direction.
Right. Only Flagler Beach prohibits you from parking the wrong direction. We hear that quite a bit. Or only Flagler Beach prohibits you from parking in the middle of the street. We heard that one yesterday. But so he did that there, but then he offered it to another, and the other he offered it to said, no, I'll just pay. And actually, I think half of the respondents today are paying citations and not doing community service. But he did ask me to ask the commission how you feel about that. And before I ask you how you feel about that, I've kind of expressed how, if you read between lines, I've already expressed how I feel about it. I think there are cases where it works, and I would like to give him that discretion. But if it were me answering the question, I would say, I would save it for those where there's a true hardship, where somebody works on weekends, can't do a beach cleanup, and, works a job where, yeah, this really is a lot. Let's give them some alternative. Or like the motorcyclist, where this is a group of people that we have not been able to get the word out to help educate. So I would like that to be more reserved maybe than he thought he might use. I think he thought he might use it more often. So my suggestion would be, yeah, in a few perfect fit cases that I'd be okay with it. But for the most, I would stick with what we've been doing, which is either pay the fine or dedicate a couple hours of your life to going out and serving the community.
Thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree. And if you feel, I have not been to any of those meetings, so I don't know the special magistrate, but it seems like you have great faith in his judgment. And
I do.
And so,
But he's also he can be very forgiving.
oh, okay.
So and that's why I'm posing, I told him I would pose the question, and that's why I'm asking you to kind of give me some guardrails that I can give him.
All right,
Yes,
to
ma'am.
me, the end should be that this behavior stops. And if one motorcyclist can go talk to a group of 10 motorcyclists and it stops, I think that's great.
Yes, ma'am.
And how much money we would get out of giving him a fine, I don't think is going to make or break the city. So if we can get those misbehaviors to stop, then that's my goal, however we get there.
Other thoughts?
I agree if the magistrate finds, we can use up to his judgment on that particular situation.
But as for that option, limited use of it, only in,
Very.
is that what, am I, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I'll convey then.
I am of the mindset of more limitations than, kind of where it's been headed. I think it's too lenient.
Yeah, I wouldn't want it to go back to the reason we had a special magistrate to start with, because when we had a code enforcement board, it was like, oh, he's a nice person,
It just becomes like this crazy bargaining process of how the skirt constantly parking bad or doing stuff wrong. And
I definitely would not say that that's not the demeanor, and he does an excellent job of educating. And one thing that we hear frequently from appellants is this is the highest parking citation we've ever had to pay, which is probably true. As you know, we went through that when we adjusted what the fines were, and he will explain exactly what we talked about here, which is, yes, and there's a reason why those fines are higher here, because parking has reached a point in Flagler Beach where if I get a $20 ticket for parking somewhere, parking on the dune where I'm not supposed to park, where I'm causing damage, well, that's just paid parking for somebody, and they pay $20 to park all day. And that's why we had to do something, and he will respond to appellants that exact thing.
what's interesting in that whole sentence is these people are saying, this is the highest parking ticket I got. Well, that means you got a lot of them. And
they're doing a study of parking.
You should have no idea what parking tickets cost, buddy. So, that right there kind of gives you an idea of your targeted person, and that's the one that you would want to have less lenience with.
Yes,
Commissioner Valier?
one thought about the motorcyclist idea. Now, just because somebody rides a motorcycle doesn't mean they belong to a motorcycle group.
This one did. He had given enough indication that he rode in a group, and I think that's kind of what gave the magistrate the idea. I think that's when the light bulb went off over his head, is when he started talking about his group.
Well, I think we have enough trust in your discretion to...
Well, and actually, we can do that too. So with what you've told me today, then I also feel comfortable, and he does a good job. He will ask me if I object. So between he and I, we'll put both of I'll let him use his discretion, but if there is a case where I think, no, this is not appropriate one for that, then I'll just object to the relief. And he'll still do what he'll do, but he probably wouldn't do it over my objection on something like that. So that gives me plenty of direction. I appreciate it. That's all I have tonight.
City Manager.
Chair, Commission, thank you very much. I do have an opportunity to present to you. Occasionally we receive solicitation or announcements for grants that are available. And we have a grant through DEP, a water grant, that for four different possibilities. I've provided you with a flyer at the dais for you to look at. I'd like to just summarize the grants and what we have the availability for. They're due August 31st, and the first meets your budgetary goal that you had on the sewer on Oak Street. And this really came during our budget review, Ben came up and said, hey, I got an idea, and so this is the idea. And a lot of these are Ben's ideas that he's been able to explore. And we have a staff team that's working with Ben and that can put these grants together. And so that's one. It's a 60/40, and the total grant would be potentially $80,000. The potable water intercoastal river crossing, that is also was a decision module that you approved in the budget process and gave us direction for. That would be a phase one would be that grant, and we would look at a subsequent grant to tie in with that if we got approved for this, in amount of $3 million. Then we have two more grants that are tied into the project that we're doing in the rebuilding of the wastewater treatment plant. One is the Reclaim Water project that Ben has talked to you about and Johnny has talked to you about. It's also $3 million on a 50-50 match. And the next is a retaining wall at the wastewater treatment plant that would prevent drainage from going down into the intercoastal. So that is also part of the plant reconstruction or construction. So those are due August the 31st. There'll be a lot of work in these, but again, we do have a staff team that's working to get these grants complete, and we feel confident that we can get them complete by the 31st. Should we get these approved, then we'd bring them back to you for the specific approval process, because right now they're in the formulation stages. But at the staff level, we felt that it's very important that we keep you aware of the major initiatives we're taking with grants, so that you see what's going on and how we tie the grants back into the policy direction that you have set through either the budgetary process or other policy direction that you've given to us. So I'll stop there, and any comments that you may have.
Commissioners, comments? Commissioner Sherman?
So I just to understand what you're saying, are you saying that you feel confident that we could go for all four, or you're thinking just one of those?
No, we feel confident going all four of those.
Okay. That's the only question I had.
Any other comments?
No.
I had a comment. Go ahead, Commissioner.
That's that good news.
I had a comment. So during the decision modules, one of the river crossing modules got approved and then one did. And that's really a tough consideration position, to look at, and we were heavily split on it. So if y'all are reaching out, and kind of bear with me on this thought, so if y'all are reaching out for grants and stuff, depending on how, if it's 50-50, I don't see that really changing. But if there's grant money available, because Ben can get really aggressive with these grants, and he's super knowledgeable. If there's any additional funding, it would probably be very beneficial to this body to consider that. I'll call it the Lambert crossing, the loop, because it had benefits, but it also it doubled the project cost. So that's what we got kind of stuck on. But if there's additional funding there, that's going to significantly change what we are considering, and it could potentially make it possible, because it was a really tough decision. We were heavily split on it. And I don't think any of us are against that. I think we were just against the doubling of the cost for the project, if that makes sense. So I don't know where in those type of options work, but I don't know how this body feels about staff looking at that as a potential option if the costs can, become more favorable, I guess.
Well, yeah, if we got this $3 million, and then in addition to what we had already agreed to with the decision module, if there's enough then to do that whole loop thing, then I would be willing to relook at it, sure.
Right. So I don't know if that helps you or not in kind of.
If I could restate and let you know what I believe the direction would be. What we would have to do is structure the grant or a subsequent grant, with this, about the Lambert looping system. And so we could begin the process with this grant and then structure it such, and if it doesn't work, financially or otherwise, we'd pull it back out, knowing what your priorities are. But as we go through the grant process, if we can structure it correctly and get the financing put in place based upon that 50-50 match, then we could, if you approve it, right now it's not here because you didn't approve it. So if you tonight tell us to go ahead and move forward with that, we can then structure that phase of the grant with this, and if it works through the grant process, and also as we look at the budget, then we'd submit it. And then if we got approved, you'd see it subsequent to that. So we can do that if that's the direction of the city commission.
At this best I remember, that said I forget the exact word, maybe can be paid with grant money. But if we're only paying, I thought that what we were looking at was, grant money to do the river crossing, but I didn't know it was a 50-50. That wasn't part of the information we had.
Right.
Still makes it pretty costly to add this phase 2 in there. We're only getting half the money.
Well, what would happen is we would look at the phase 2, and if we could not justify the revenue, the match, out of the current revenue stream that we have in a reserve balance, then we would pull it out. Okay. And so we would not be submitting a grant that we could not justify our 50% match with. But the real advantage to this is it's an opportunity. And 50-50 is typically 60-40 is the best, but 50-50 is a pretty good match.
Mr. Sherman or Mayor? Just for, my thoughts. So when those decision modules came forward, the main goal of the city previously was to just have a redundant water crossing. And then when the decision modules got split is where things got fuzzy, because then we had to decide, well, we accomplished the goal of getting it across, but then the question became, did we want to double the cost of this project just to have a looping system? And that's where it started to struggle. But if in this grant, you can get some cost favorability in there, or, better matches, or even additional grants that can make that benefit of the loop more attractive, I think that would really benefit everybody. Are y'all kind of tracking with me on that?
Yeah, I think we're all saying the same thing.
All right. Okay, so it sounds like we got a consensus on this. Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Good. Thank you. I know the direction to take now. I would like to just, if I could, just close with this. And I can't express to you enough my thanks for the appreciation you showed to me. You may have seen it, and my reaction to that, and it was very, very heartwarming. I can tell you that, but it's been my honor. It's been my honor for you allowing me to serve Flagler Beach, and I've learned an unbelievable amount from the 5 months that I've been here, and I really appreciate what you've done to allow me to serve. But I appreciate the positive evaluation that not only you have given me, the staff has given me, and the citizens have given me. But anything that I have done in a positive way in Flagler Beach is directly attributable to the support that staff has given to me. And I say that from the perspective that Flagler Beach has a tremendous staff, dedicated staff. You really do. And they're to be commended and applauded for that. But I would also like to say that it's a direct tribute to you. What the support that you have provided to me in this role, and I walked in and for 2 months I was pretty much overwhelmed. And the reason that helped me through it was not only staff, but was you. And it was really the support and the vision, and that, I'd like to put the emphasis on vision because it came out tonight. What is the City of Flagler Beach, the commission action with this joint city-county meetings, and your policy agenda is very, very visionary, and you're to be commended for that. I can't thank you enough. Again, it's been my honor, and I look forward to being with you again at some future point, and in a different role, as a citizen this time. So thank you very much.
I was starting to latch on to those words you were saying.
You noticed, Chair, how fast I got out of that.
You did. And call yourself.
But I also have to say, that cake, if you had any more of that cake, I tell you, I'm on a sugar high now. I mean,
Well, Mike, if you ever go off and save another city, we'll give you a positive recommendation.
Don't forget to come back for doggy surfing next year.
yeah, I really do regret that I missed that. And I will be back for that.
That is definitely something to see. City Clerk.
The CRA director has asked that I request you schedule a special CRA meeting on your August 17th. This would be one where we'd call to order regular meeting, recess, go into CRA.
Oh, within the
Yes.
meeting.
Within the meeting. Y'all good with that?
And she said she needs to discuss project approval and a lighting proposal.
The what? Oh, that's what the meeting's for. Okay.
And then
Don't we also have to, I'm sorry, don't we also have to do the budget, the CRA budget?
No, you picked the dates of August 30 or 31st. Oh, no, that'll be with your budget hearing dates.
She'll piggyback on.
Right.
So is this multiple project proposals?
I don't have a lot of information, sir. I think it was maybe a grant, maybe that came before her, one of her CRA grants, possibly. I'm not sure. I could be wrong.
Was it?
That, just an update on the dune walkovers. 19th is open. All the piles are driven. I received today a change order for the engineered drawings for the 4 new switchback designs. They hope to have those the next couple of weeks, and they are drawn so that we may use them in the future when another word I won't say comes through and takes them out again. We can reuse those drawings. They're designed that way. That's they're looking. There's some sand missing from some of the tops of the walkovers. She wrote me about that today. She asked if it was something she wanted them to submit a change order to put the sand in themselves, and I told her, hold up, and I'm waiting to hear back from her. I talked to her after I spoke with Mike, asking for specific locations and an estimate on cubic yards of sand they were talking about because it might be in the FDOT right of way. So I'm waiting to hear back from her on that, and before we can move forward with how that'll be approached.
Is it?
That's it. That's
So
enough.
all the plowings are driven except for the switchbacks? Is that what you're saying?
You know, she didn't say switchbacks, but
Maybe they started one of the switchbacks, but didn't
Yeah.
finish it.
I'm pretty sure it doesn't include the switchbacks because we don't have those permits yet.
But
it may have been one of the ones up at the top of the dune where the footprint wasn't changing, or was it down?
No, it was 17th Street.
Yeah, I'll have to follow up with her. I know there
Everybody was jumping up and down thinking 17th was well on its way, and that was, you said all along, that was one of the switchback
said
designs,
that
right?
all along. That will be one of the last.
So,
All right. Chief?
we just got notes.
I've been sitting in the back all night.
And you don't have as many notes as he's got.
No, I'm just up here to be humble to say thank you to a bunch of folks. Start out with the commission, mayor, chair, and the commission. The salaries, the salary compensation study that's been going on for well over a year is finally complete. And to vote unanimously, I think speaks a lot about the Diaz and how you feel about staff. The staff here are incredible. I'm a big believer in hire character, train skill. Well, we hired a really good character guy that's got a lot of skills. And when he got here, he said he was going to do three things. One, hire a professional city manager to take his place. Man sitting in the front row. Two, he'd get us through a budget. And three, he'd get that salary study finished. So in Mike's office, if you've never seen it, is a quote on the board that says, "I cannot change the direction of the wind, but I can adjust my sails to always reach my destination." Well, I think we should promote him to admiral for the amount of sail adjusting that he's done in the last 5 months. And if anybody wants to know anything about Mike Abels, I'll finish with a quote that I think kind of exemplifies what Mike is. It's from Jimmy Dean. It's very simple. Do what you say you're going to do and try to do it a little bit better than you said you would. I think that's Mike Abels in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And then lastly, Captain Blanchett was up here, and I'm another one when it talks about character. Captain Blanchett was the advocate for the whole city, not just himself on that salary study. Whether it came out in his favor or not, he advocated for people in departments he's not in charge of. I think that speaks a lot about, you asked about what does a deputy chief do? He leads by example. We're blessed to have him as the deputy chief at the police department. Because if something tragic happens to me, you won't skip a beat with Lance Blanchett. He may be a little grayer and a little younger, but you're still going to get the same decision. So again, thank you to the commission. Mike, thank you so much for the last 5 months. I've learned immensely from you, and I'm looking forward to Mr. Martin taking over the reins of what you've turned out to be a very sturdy ship. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Chief. Almost city manager?
Almost.
Hey, I got him signed.
I was like, contract signed.
Yeah, that was my first mistake. I should have waited. No, I think Mike has set the bar exceptionally high. I look forward to trying to meet it and maybe do the impossible and exceed it. But I look forward to working with all of you and serving this community and filling these shoes. So let's get started.
Yeah.
All right.
See you on Monday.
We're looking forward to making you earn your money.
Rick, keep your list a little short in the beginning.
Mayor.
You know those lists you always have.
No, he already knows about my list.
I have two things. One is the August 5th is our first Saturday. It'll be the first Saturday beach cleanup, 9 a.m. Meet at the A-frame under the pier. And the other, I'm going to share just because I was mysteried myself as well. 17th Street North, on the north end, starting at 18th and then a little bit onto 17th, there was a lot of people that had been parking on the road up there, and I would call the police officers every day and say, hey, there's people parked here at the sheriff's office, not emergency line. And then all of a sudden, these flags showed up. And I was like, well, by golly, this is the best way to keep people from parking on the dunes. And today, I realized DOT's planning a bunch of new plants. We've solved the mystery. There's water trucks out, new COs are in, and the plants start at just a little bit south of the 18th dune walkover and continue north where the Seacant seawall is. And they're brightly colored flags, and I thought if there is one way that we can learn from DOT is to keep people from parking in the wrong spots is little tiny flags, because it works. And that's all I have.
Mr. Sherman?
I really don't have anything tonight, so I'll just go ahead and pass it down to Commissioner Bellinger.
Commissioner Bellinger?
I mean, I can talk longer?
No.
All right, well, I'll try to keep it short.
Yes.
We got this public presentation About the hotel, the developer wants to update the public regarding logistic plan during construction. Might be quite an informative event, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of people here in this building. It's coming Tuesday at 5:30. Did I get that right?
Mhm.
Wednesday. Wednesday at 5:30.
First is the flood.
Right. This banner they put in the A-frame for, from Advent Health about the, them helping the lifeguards, has always been hung on the side of the pier. I just think that's not a good spot for that. It's kind of like I don't want to turn that area into a billboard spot, but I think as many people will see it on the beach as they have in the past. Actually, I was looking through some old pictures of the pier, and there was that same banner hanging on the side of the pier. I just think it should be moved from where it is.
Where would you
I don't know if
prefer they
anybody
put
else
it?
thinks of it.
He suggested its original location.
I mean, it's taken up, with the A.
Oh, I noticed it, and I wondered if it was something new that they were doing, and then my other thought was how many other people donate to the lifeguards as well.
Well, you bring up a point, and that's my concern is that is not advertising space, is my concern. That's larger than the pier shop sign.
Which really doesn't need to be there either right now.
Yeah,
Beyond the pier shop.
we definitely don't want to discourage donations. It's great, but how far are we going to go if somebody makes a donation to, doing something like that? Is that's a slippery slope going down, setting a precedent like that.
I'd just really like to see, I don't know what the rest of you think, but I think we ought to move it to the pier like where it's been in the past.
So you would see it from the beach?
From the beach.
Where it's been for years and years.
Yeah, it's been that way.
There used to be one on each side.
I agree.
So beachgoers are the ones that see it.
And then I also liked your comment about take down the pier bait shop sign for right now.
Well, that's what I was saying, it really doesn't need to be there either, because it just gives people,
False
yeah.
advertisement.
I'll leave that up to staff at this point. I brought that up. One thing that was on our weekly highlights list was the wick line hardening being 100% done. So I went for a little walk over there, and I was pretty let down by the fact that it's a couple of things weren't done that probably should have been done with that project. And one is a door that's on the back of the library. Every door and window got put in all three of those buildings except for one. And the excuse I got was because there were library shelves behind it. So now we've got an old steel door that's been there probably since the library was built.
Probably leaks.
And, one day it's going to be in just as bad a shape as all the other ones were, and we're going to have to replace it anyway. And I just don't get the thought process that it got left behind because there's a bookshelf in the way. Another thing, over underneath the steps on the south end is a plywood door to get underneath the basement area. And if you're doing, storm mitigation, then I would think you would replace something made out of plywood with a wind-rated door of some sort. So I was pretty disappointed those didn't get done. Then we're talking about painting the building, and I'm looking at the building, and I see all these rust marks running down from where the railings are. And I walk around to the side where the ramp is between the school and the senior center, where the ramp is, the handicap ramp going up. And the railing's laying on the ground because it's rusted and fallen off. And we're going to paint the building but not put railings on it. I just don't get that either. The walkovers are progressing nicely. Volleyball net's up. It only took 3 months, but it's there, so we're good. One last thing I wanted to bring up was you guys shut down the sidewalk on South Flagler. And I talked to Lee a little bit today and asked him how shovel-ready that was, because that may be a project we could ask the TPO to help us with during the call for projects. And the more shovel-ready it is, the better chance we have of getting some help with that. And that would come out of a bucket of money that's not going after near as often. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it would be bicycle pedestrian related. So I think we would have a really good chance of getting something like that if we maybe offered a little bit more than what they require as a match, plus because you get extra points for that.
But there were other reasons that we voted against it. It wasn't just money. We had some environmental concerns about putting more sidewalk, more pavement. So it wasn't just the money issue.
All right.
Well, are you looking for
You're
just
saying we, is that what everybody said? I didn't hear everybody say that.
Well, we'd have to go back to the minutes to see that. But are you,
It's been talked about for a long time.
is your suggestion to just explore grant opportunities for it or something?
Yes.
What you got, Penny?
TPO isn't a grant opportunity, it's a project list that they'll fund, and there's different categories. It's a submission deadline, I don't know what it is.
I think last year it was February, or this past year it was February for call to grant, so they'll probably have an announcement here at our next one, or I can find out the next meeting.
I just know that strategic planning identified public safety and as, a priority. And I think that would cover some public safety. And that's a very highly utilized road that's only going to get more utilized, especially after this hotel's built. But
Are those projects no match, or it's just a funded thing?
they're a relatively low match. It's not necessarily no match. What is it, like 10 or 15% or something?
Very low. So I guess, is this body, would it want to consider a low match TPO grant?
No, because my objection was not.
Is this what you want to put on an agenda so you could have some backup that everybody, so you could all be on the same sheet of music maybe, to put it on a future agenda?
I don't know, would it even be agenda ready? Because it hasn't even been brought forward to the TPO.
Well, I
think, but what Rick's asking though is it something that you want to bring forward to the TPO? So that's what I was asking, following up on that, is do you want to bring the discussion of, is this something we want to ask the TPO to consider, to make that question an agenda item, and that way you can put some backup on it and debate the issues around it?
It's a good idea.
And if it's not that we discuss as a body what we want it to be.
Okay.
As well as the TDC grant that we don't want to forget about.
Sure.
Yes.
Sounds like we have a consensus on it.
Yes, yeah, I will, I can get an email over to Colleen, who's the director over there.
Well, we need to make it a consensus, or an agenda item first.
Yeah, I don't think we're ready for you to talk.
You want me to ask her maybe a little bit
We
more
don't want you to do
information?
anything.
Oh, nothing, okay.
No, we're just talking about agenda.
Okay,
item. That's
perfect.
it.
All right.
So we got a consensus on that.
Okay.
What else you got?
All right. Oh, and 9,372 square foot house.
Yeah.
$4.7 million to build it. We got coming, and it's on 3 lots.
It's on 3 lots.
It's on 3 lots. So, and actually it's one of the houses that I built, or the people that live in it are the ones building it across the street. So it's going to be quite the project.
What street is that?
It's on Central 1700 block, east side.
North or south?
Is that all you got?
Well, you're only getting a 5,400 square foot house at 16th Street.
Commissioner Mealy, what you got?
We had the museum board meeting, and here's your personal invitation to the annual. There will only be one fundraising event this year, since there's no ability to have cheer on the pier. We're having fall, whatever it says on there, fall for Flagler. It's on September 23rd. From 3 to 6, you can start buying tickets on the 1st of August. So it'd be great if people bought tickets for that. We've had a lot more visitors to the museum than we had anticipated, which was good. And we also got more money from the state than we thought. Well, at first it was like there was going to be no money from the state. But we've gotten more than we have in the past, so that's a good thing. I went to the FDOT meeting about the repaving of A1A, and I found out something new. At least it was new to me. A pedestrian hybrid beacon. Pass that. I couldn't get enough for everybody. Pass that down. They're going to put 3 of those. They're going to put, in addition to just repaving from South 8th to North 18th, there's going to be some more mid-block pedestrian crossings with those things on them. There's going to be curb bulb outs at South 5th and South 4th, and some sidewalk improvements, and extending the concrete median on the north side of 100, and upgrade some lighting. So design is supposed to be done by the fall of 24, and construction by the spring of 25.
Going to have a concrete median on the north side of 100?
That's what they said.
To see that. I'm going to squeeze that in there.
Okay.
I don't know how they're going to do it, but they said they're going to do it. Anyway, I think this thing is pretty cool. I'm sorry, I would have taken multiples, but I didn't have them. When Commissioner Sullivan spoke at the FB3 meeting, he talked about we should get our legislative priorities together, like now, seriously by September. So you wrote that down already, okay? So if anybody has legislative, that's when our big legislative delegation up to comes and we tell them what we want. So I had spoken with Drew. I know the mayor has brought this up multiple times, but we got another complaint about fishermen on the beach. And Drew, do you want to go over that for me?
So we have, the issue that we have is a preemption issue because we're preempted from adopting anything that involves saltwater fishing. So that includes creating, so what we talked about when we talked about it here, and I know the mayor and I talked about it, is using the lifeguards to try to push swimmers into a swimmer-friendly area and then in a friendly manner discouraging fishing. So we'll keep trying to do that. But as far as regulating where they can fish, and the states kicked us out of that, the ability to create, you can't fish here, we can't do that. But we can keep trying to encourage people to do the right thing.
So when they're giving out the surveys that we're going to have done with the lifeguards, they can be reminding people they can't fish during, or they shouldn't fish.
Please avoid fishing around swimmers, yes.
Yeah.
It's really not Well, it's not saying it's not about the swimmers, but people are walking along the beach, and if these guys aren't sitting or standing at the shoreline, they're sitting back 30 feet from where the waves are breaking, and people are walking in front of them and get hung up in a fishing line. So that we're same thing with the lifeguards on their ATVs would be barreling along. And of course, they would know better to watch for them, but I've seen people just walk right into them repeatedly. So that's my concern.
How are the other beaches doing that, Drew? Because there are beaches that you can't fish on them.
They're ignoring the preemption.
Is there a rule that we could limit the number of poles, so it's not 7 poles?
We cannot regulate saltwater fishing. It is a straight preemption. And to your question, though, really and truly, it may not even be actively or intentionally ignoring. There's a lot of, this is one of those that just with the preemption statute last year, where the state, where they, the new challenge, or maybe 2 years ago, when the league put out these lists of, here are some statutes where you're preempted that you probably didn't know you were preempted, and that's one of those on those lists. So unless they have somebody who's reading those things from the league, it's buried. They may just be unaware that there's actually a preemption that involves saltwater fishing.
Good.
But I was, what I was seeing rolling my eyes back for as you were talking, Chair, though, is, I wonder if there's anything we could do, even if it's just something simple, back to the power of a small flag. What if we invest in some little flags and then the lifeguards can hand this, would you mind putting this where your line is down here on the beach? If you're going to be way back there, putting a flag here so somebody knows there's something I need to be looking out for. Just common sense stuff, and encouraging people to use their sense.
Okay, thank you for all that, Drew. For those who did not go the last time, there's a repeat of the ability to elevate your homes meeting, about grants for that, individual grants. That's on the 31st at 6 o'clock. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was I gave you 2 pieces of paper. Some of you, it's a duplicate if you were at the FB3 meeting. I summarized this Senate Bill 170, which is the one that says that we are going to have to write a business impact statement about every ordinance, except when you look at the ones that you don't have to do it for. I went back to 2017, and that's what this other piece of paper is. The ordinances we passed since 2017 that don't have anything to do with money or with zoning or land development code are the ones on this piece of paper. All since 2017. I just didn't feel like going any further back than that. So Drew, the businesses were receptive to listening. I did not have this list then. I sent this list to the 2 co-presidents yesterday. But they said they would really like to have a workshop to hash out how this business impact statement thing should work. So I think that if the...
I guess I wasn't able to attend, but what do you mean they want to have a I guess clarify, they want a workshop to...
I wanted them to be first aware of this bill, Senate Bill 170. And so that's why I wrote up the summary for them. And I went over that. And then I went over the list of what that legislation does not apply to. And it's mostly anything to do with money and anything to do with land development, growth, any of that. So if you go back and look at all our ordinances, those are the 2 things that most of our ordinances deal with. So looking at the ones that didn't, forming boards and committees, well, how that would affect the business.
Right. And even most of these, the business impact statement would be no business impact. Yeah.
All right, noise ordinance, I can see how that might have some impact. Not go for tortoises, not panhandling, I guess they would like that. But most of these things have nothing to do with businesses. So what they wanted to do, because they were in a hurry, it was in the morning and they wanted to get to work, if we could have an hour of sit down and rehash this.
And I think what comes out of this, because this is another, I think Jane, you heard this was a suggestion, you might come up with it on your own. I think you came up with it on your own about the same time the league, but the league also suggested doing this with the businesses, I think, didn't they? Sitting down, because this business impact statement is for their benefit. So one of the league's suggestions is sit down with your business community, since the legislation is more loosey-goosey than it was the last time it was proposed a year ago. And so it's not as stringent as what has to be in the business impact. The league's idea was ask your business community, what would your business community like to see in that business impact? So at least we can make the most of the legislation that's been thrust upon us.
Well, I would probably suggest more like Commissioner Mealy do, like a town hall with them versus a entire workshop. Is that something the whole commission needs to be engaged on?
No, whoever feels like coming. All right, I'll call it a town hall.
Really?
I liked
You all okay with
how Drew just said, ask the businesses, what do they want to see?
But that's what she's doing. That's what started this conversation.
Okay,
Jane did exactly
that.
that.
Then how Jane was explaining.
Can put out a PSA on it and try to get, some interest and.
Yeah, because of course not every business was at the meeting, and Johnny and Scott were kind of like ready to leave. Johnny had just gotten home from Michigan at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and his brain wasn't functioning. And I know Scott's got a lot going on in his family.
You okay with Commissioner Mealy? Yes. Taking that and then bringing it forward?
Yeah, and of course, anybody else who wants to come, and if Drew could be there.
Well, and I'm happy to, as long as I'm available when you said it. But the idea that I lean forward to say is, what do you think of Commissioner Mealy and I? We can work together. We can put up together, take one of these ordinances, maybe one of the ones that actually might have had some impact, like maybe noise, and do a sample what I think they might want to see, and that way they're actually working from a piece of paper and say, no, I don't like this. I do like this. I want more of this and less of that. We might get some more feedback from them if we had a sample that they could kind of look at and see what they like and don't like about what we might come up with.
Yeah, everybody good? Okay. So we'll get with Penny and come up with a date? Okay. And feel free to come if you want. Okay, I'm done.
All done? All right.
All done.
I don't have anything. We'll move on to public comments. Any members of the public wish to speak?
Not all at once.
All right, we'll close public comment, and I'll look for motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I'm not for sure you have to